Have you ever heard of a man who once worked as a nightclub bouncer and later became the voice of compassion for over 1 billion souls? This isn't fiction, it's the real story of Jorge Mario Bergoglio, a boy from the back streets of Buenos Aires who grew up washing lab equipment and dreaming quietly beneath the South American sky. Decades later, the world would know him by a different name, Pope Francis. The first Jesuit pope, the first from Latin America, the first to say, "I prefer a church that is bruised, hurting, and dirty because it has been out on the streets." But what shaped him? What moments forged the soul behind that gentle smile? Today we step into a story, not of power, but of purpose, not of prestige, but of presence. This is the journey of a man who chose humility over hierarchy. Long before he wore white robes, he was just Jorge. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, born on December 17, 1936, in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The eldest of 5 children, he grew up in a modest home, with an accountant father of Italian roots and a devoted mother who tended the family with quiet grace. From an early age, he was no stranger to hard work. He swept floors, he washed dishes, he even worked as a bouncer at a local nightclub. Later, he studied chemistry and worked in a food laboratory testing products before anyone knew his name. But something stirred inside him, a silent calling that would one day lead him far from the lab and closer to the hearts of millions. In the alleys of Argentina, a future pope was forming not through power, but through humility. And that's where his journey truly began. One day, at the age of 21, Jorge fell gravely ill. A severe lung infection forced doctors to remove part of his right lung. And in that fragile silence of recovery, he heard a whisper, a call. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep. It stirred something greater than science. And so, in 1958, he walked through the doors of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. There, he found more than discipline. He found devotion. He found purpose. 11 years later, in 1969, he was ordained a priest. And in 1973, he became provincial superior of the Jesuits in Argentina, right in the middle of a dark and dangerous time. Political unrest, fear, disappearance. But he chose not to hide. He stayed. He listened. He led. This was not just a chapter. It was the moment when Jorge the scientist became Jorge the shepherd. In 1998, he became Archbishop of Buenos Aires. Just 3 years later, he was elevated to cardinal by Pope John Paul II. But Jorge Mario Bergoglio never chased titles. He chose simplicity over splendor. As cardinal, he took the bus. He cooked his own meals. Then, on March 13, 2013, history was made. He became the 266th Pope of the Catholic Church, and the first ever from the Americas, the first Jesuit, the first to call himself Francis. He refused the lavish papal palace. Instead, he lived in a modest guest house, close to people, closer to truth. His voice echoed beyond Vatican walls. He spoke of mercy, of climate justice, of dignity for the poor. He wrote Laudato Si, a call to heal both planet and people. In a world craving power, Pope Francis offered presence, and that changed everything. He didn't just lead the church, he challenged it with courage and compassion. He called for transparency in Vatican finances. He confronted the painful legacy of abuse, not with denial, but with repentance. He spoke of interfaith dialogue, not as diplomacy, but as destiny. And he reminded the world, we are all brothers and sisters. He stood with refugees, defended the poor, and held the hands of the forgotten. He challenged the economy of exclusion, calling the trickle-down myth a dangerous illusion. Through it all, he never lost his smile, never abandoned simplicity, and never stopped believing in the quiet power of mercy. That is the legacy of Pope Francis, not one of grandeur, but of grace. From the streets of Buenos Aires to the heart of the Vatican, Pope Francis reminded us, true greatness isn't measured in power, but in kindness and in how we lift others up. If this story moved you, if it sparked even a moment of reflection, then maybe it's time. Time to pause, to breathe, to lead with mercy in your own way. Because the world doesn't need more noise, it needs more grace. So if this journey meant something to you, don't let it end here. Like, share, subscribe, and join us as we uncover the untold stories that still echo in this world.